Mr. House, are you ready? Mr. House? I changed that order.
Okay, got it.
Thank you for letting me speak again. I'm William House. I reside at 3483 Cascade Terrace in West Linn. And again, I'm speaking on behalf of the West Linn Alliance for Inclusive Community. The Alliance has reviewed the 2019-2020 budget, albeit at a high level, what was on the website, and we do have some comments to make. We appreciate the pressure that's being put on the school budget by the increased PERS demand. And we recognize the reality that a budget reduction of $3.5 million will result in significant reductions in personnel and professional development spending, as stated in the superintendent's budget message. The Alliance, however, would urge you to look at the professional development spending that we do and to focus it as much as possible on school safety and on equity in education. We think that they are priorities in spending. The superintendent's budget message also stated, and I quote, maintaining effective class sizes while strengthening counseling, teacher librarian, special education, operations, and information technology support, quote, is a key investment strategy. That being said, special education and counseling appear to be either neutrally or negatively affected in the budget when I look at it at a high level. Salary funding in the current budget for the support of students with disabilities is down 14.8% from last year. I don't know all the details of that, but I'm just noting at the high level. It does cause us some concern, and we think with the closure of the Arts and Technology High School program and the migration to the new CTE facilities, that this does put that population of special education children at risk. We would urge you to look at that closely. WLAIC supports programs aimed at improving mental health counseling for our students. These services have been a key area of emphasis in school safety discussions after the Parkland shootings, and the Alliance believes that mental health counseling impacts the district's goals on equity in education. The aspiration of hiring additional mental health counseling professionals seems to be at risk at a high level, at least in this budget when we look at it. The increases for social work services and psychological services, there are increases there, but they're probably about cost of living sorts of increases. We don't know fully what the plans are, but we do request that the district review this area of the budget and provide some public information on the role that student mental health services will play in our schools in the future. That's all my comments. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for your written comments as well. Just to clarify, Dr. Ludwig, my understanding was that we did discuss the reduction in the portion of the budget support of students with disabilities, and that was related to our inclusion practices primarily. Is my recollection accurate?
Could you state that again and what?
The question from Mr. House was that the salary funding in the current budget for support of students with disabilities was down 14.8%. And my recollection is we did discuss that during the budget committee, and it had to do with the changes in our allocation of staffing to other budget areas, not a reduction in staff supporting students with disabilities.
Correct. I think it's always a caution in looking at one line item in isolation, because we allocate staffing in a number of items in a way of doing that. So it may go down in one area but increase in another area because we don't designate in the budget who's being paid by name or title. We have that flexibility. Sometimes in one line item account we can increase staffing, and sometimes we can shift it to another. So always when looking at a school district budget, there should be a caution around extrapolating one line and making an assumption with that, because we can pay for personnel and staffing through many different line items.
Thank you. I also have Ms. Kirkendall, but I'm thinking she went ahead and left because of, okay. Do I need to open that as a budget hearing officially?
We thought you just added another public comment time, so I think we should leave it as that, given how long we've been going and the patience of some people to speak. So I think we will have to designate an official budget hearing opening and closing, and see if there's anyone else who wishes to speak specifically about that.
Thank you. Ms. Hughes.
So good evening. I will do the budget amendments, and then after that we will open for budget hearing. On May 13, the budget committee got together, met and approved the budget for 1920. Before board moved the approved budget to adoption, there's one topic that needs to be addressed, and that's either 4.5 million bond proceeds. So thank you, Kelly, for passing out this book. So in front of you is the approved budget for 1920. If you turn on to page 115, the second tab that I have the sticker for you. So page 115 under Fund 425 2014 bond. On the left-hand side, you will see resource 5110 bond proceeds. And then about in the middle of 2019-20 proposed and approved, we put down 4.5 million. That's the bond proceeds that we have in the pre-authorization back in 2014. So recently we have a meeting with the investment company Part5. We with board chair Fitch, vice chair Hyde, superintendent myself, director Woodley, and director Skillstorm. We met on June 6th to determine that it's time for us to move forward to sell this bond proceeds. And the reason we would like to have this amendment is, please turn into page 113. So 113 under 300 debt service fund. On the left-hand side, you will see function 1111 current tax year, 23 million. That's 23, do you see it? Oh, on 112, please. On page 112. Yeah, 23 millions. That is the debt services that we have to pay for our outstanding bond that we have currently. So with the additional of 4.5 million bond proceeds, if we go out and sell, we need to have the additional of 1.8 million on top of this. So with the current approved budget, the district requests for 24.1 million to be levied and applied to all taxable properties. The reason it becomes 24.1 million is we need 23 million, but when I ask the tax assessor the money we need, I have to factor in 5% more because in case at the year end, some people pay, some people not pay. So in the current budget, we asked for 24.1, but with the additional of 4.5 million bond proceeds, the district now needs to levy the amount of 26 million for payment of bond debt to be imposed on all taxable property in the fiscal year 1920. Do you have any question? So, because before the budget hearing, this is one more opportunity for public to weigh in and make comment before we move forward. So now we open for public hearing.
It appears that we have none. Yeah, no, but we received his comments.
So,
Now
board, you
can
have
move
the
to budget hearing.
resolution package in front of you, the resolution 2018-12. It's now appropriate for you to make the motion to adopt the budget.
So what we would do for process right now is, if you don't have any questions about this item, which you can defer your discussion when we have the budget discussion, we wanted to put it in front of the public so that if anyone is here and wants to comment on it during the budget hearing, they have that information prior to comment period and don't lose that opportunity when it's the budget hearing. So we had assumed that you were just having regular public comment when you invited the patron to speak. So now we should officially move into the budget hearing, which is providing an opportunity for anyone in the public to speak on the approved budget document that was approved by the budget committee.
So
All of the information is now made public prior to a budget adoption. So we would need to do an open and a close for a budget hearing.
So we hereby open the budget hearing, and we incorporate Mr. House's comments on behalf of the Westland Alliance for Inclusive Community that he provided in writing to the board and then reiterated into this portion of the hearing. And is there any further comments on the budget that was proposed and approved by the larger committee? Recommended for approval. Okay, we now close that. They're looking for a motion on the resolutions that Ms.
The resolution number 2018-12 will facilitate this move. Yeah. So while you're looking for that, I can move to the financial information report, and then we can make the motion after that. So the financial information report I have is very much stay the same as the May report, that the estimate ending fund balance for the end of this fiscal year will be around $8 million. That $8 million also included $2.9 million from the Pearl Reserve. One item that we would like to bring to board attention is we have a total of $4.1 million in Pearl Reserve. Last year, the auditor moved $2.9 million from special revenue into general fund and left $1.1 million per reserve in the debt services under UAL. So we would like to, the business office determined that it's best for the district to hold this reserve in the general fund. So we would like to move the $1.1 million from the unfunded liability under 300 debt service fund into general fund. So that's it, the report I have for financial report. And resolution number 2018-13 will facilitate this move.
Okay, thank you. I think I understand now. I had to listen to all those things, probably several times. I think I read them and then listened to them, so thank you. I feel confident to move approval of Resolution -2018-13, authorizing the transfer of appropriations.
I will second.
Further discussion?
This is a moment for some of that grace that we were talking about, as we have a lot of moving parts. So we're just going to.
Okay, hold on.
What Josie said is a transfer, and I will present it.
Okay, so I think what we have done is we kind of skipped ahead in our motion, but we have yet to move to adopt the budget.
Yeah.
And so I think she was hoping that we would move to adopt the budget, have that discussion first, and then
I will present one more appropriations transfer, and then you will make two motion. So the first motion, you'll be that approve my appropriation transfer, and then the last motion will be approve my budget adoption.
So these two items have to do with the current budget 18-19, not the budget adoption that you're going to do in 1920. These have to do with our financial statement wrapping up in June, moving some contingency funds, and also moving that PERS reserve, that 1.1 that's in a special fund, also into our general budget and our ending fund balance in 18-19. We'd like to do that and wrap that up in June with our current budget so that we have that available to us going into next year. So we'd like to do that. It's just giving you some more context as you think about the budget adoption for 1920. How are we ending in June as you're thinking about adopting for the next year? So these two moves have nothing to do with the 1920 budget. It's part of 18-19.
with just one exception, make sure, but our small discussion we had about the bond sale, that is for the 1920 budget.
Yes.
Versus these appropriations are for our present budget.
Correct. Yes.
Correct. And we
Yes.
wanted to do that prior to the budget hearing so that anyone who had come to speak about the budget that's being adopted would have all the information that you are considering as you adopt the budget. And that was one item that is new for tonight, and we wanted to put that out in front of the budget hearing. You will notice the change when you go to adopt the 1920 budget, and that resolution is there, and that taxation dollar amount is written. It will look different than the one that was signed by the budget committee. It will be an increased amount. When we get to that part, we'll show you. Okay.
So now for this current year, after the financial report that we estimate to have about 8 million carry forwards from this year into next year, and we would like to move the 1.1 million from debt service into general fund for this current year. We also very typically that CFO move money around at the end of the year to avoid budget violation. Like our district operate under 4 functions. The first function, 1,000, is the instruction. The 2,000 function represent support services. 3,000 represent debt service, and 4,000 represent capital construction. So this transfer is not increase in spending at all. The budget, when we set the budget last year in March, and then we got adopted in June, that is just the best guesstimate that how we see the district spending money. But throughout the year, something changing, program changing, more students, so the expenditure shift a little bit. So in order to avoid budget violation, around May, all of the CFO around school district reviewing our function and see how each function spending, if we have less or more, and then we make the appropriation budget fund transfer to ensure that.
If you recall, in our last audit, we had actually missed this move prior to the end of June, and it was cited in our audit that we had a place where we should have moved some from our contingency. We knew about it, but we hadn't done it by June 30th, and that was cited in our audit. So this will avoid that from happening again. It's just shoring up where were we short in certain places and how to then use that contingency fund to make sure we aren't violating any of those areas where we were short.
And those are all contained in the 2018-12 resolution.
13. The resolution number 2018.13.
Where is that? Oh, right. That's what I'm looking at. So what you're asking for, Ms. Hughes, is a motion to pass Resolution 28. Okay. Is that right?
Yes.
Chelsea King Martin,
Aye.
Betty Reynolds,
Aye.
Ginger Fitch,
Aye.
Dylan Hides,
Abstain.
Reagan Molitor.
Yes.
So now we back to our adoption budget. So in the front page of the approved budget that Kelly handed out, you will see on the right-hand side is the signature of the chair from May 13. This one right here is approved on May 13 by Jeff Howland. And then on the left is the amendment budget that I have. That includes 1.8 million. The line item that's changing is debt service fund moving from 29.4 million to 31.2 million. So that brings our total budget from 177.4 million to now become 179.2 million.
So this is reflecting that additional tax because we're selling the 4.5 million in the bonds increases this ask.
And just for purposes of public meeting, can you reiterate why we're making the decision to sell those bonds?
Yes, so when
So we had already been authorized to sell them, and it was just a timing. Almost all of the projects are almost all done, but we do have those last few remaining, and we do need that 4.5 million. We considered different timing. Do we sell it now? Do we need it right now, or do we wait? Is it something we would roll into the 206 million, which is also an option, and sell $210 million in bond if that capital bond, if we go for the capital bond and it passes? Do we wait? We do need the money now. We can do some projects this summer, and Mr. Woodley can speak to that. And then upon counsel from Piper Jaffray, they also encourage that we sell them now and not link them into the potential 206 million, but to do it as separate items, and that they can factor that into the capital bond capacity very easily. So now is the right timing. We need it for the projects to finish up, and it doesn't, we were worried about its impact on the potential 206 million, and their response to us is it does not negatively impact that.
So to add just briefly to that, from a project management perspective, we have queued up projects that require not all of the money, but a good portion of it right now that I can't back off on. There's some technology that the district really needs, the Kurt's that he's been holding on, but the timing is that if we don't move forward with it, it could impact education in the fall. It's money that was pre-authorized by prior board and the election that supported it. I can't speak necessarily exactly why it wasn't sold at the time, that the majority of it was sold. Board had some conversations, and there are options, I think, at the time of the sale. We do need it now. We don't necessarily need all of it, but for us to finish programming out and delivering projects, we need to have confidence that the cash is there to finish the 14 bond through the next year at least. And then working with Piper Jaffray, that it wasn't necessarily a complication, but it was something that needed to be considered along with the possibility of a larger bond at the same time so that they could maximize the tax collections in a way that honors the $3 per thousand. And if we don't do it, we'll probably run short by mid-August. So it's been recommended that we do it now. The appropriation was already on the income side of the budget. You'll see that $4.5 million there as income, but it was the timing around selling it and then the tax collection that needs to happen. A part of it, about $1.8 million, needs to be collected in the fall of this year because of the gap we have between what the rate is and the $3. And it's just an opportunity now to do it. So the board is considering it as that amendment to the budget on the debt service side.
I would move that the board adopt the 2019-2020 financial budget for the West Linn-Wilsonville School District as presented in Resolution 2018-12 in the overall amount of $179,246,372.
Second?
I second.
Discussion?
So I had asked a number of questions after getting the board book. I asked a number of questions last Friday, and I didn't get responses, so I'm just going to comment on them now. My hope was that we would base our budget on current information. Our approved budget was really based on a proposed budget. It was based on revenue information from last November, and I think that we know for certain that we have more revenue than is indicated in the budget. For example, we received in May from the Oregon Department of Education our approved state funding level, and the difference appears to be millions of dollars. And also, we've kind of alluded to some of the grant requirements, but in an executive memo from Colt Gill, the director of the Department of Education, regarding high school success funding, he said, be sure that your adopted budget includes the appropriate spending authority for the plan you ultimately will submit to Department of Ed. So we know that there's more House Bill 3427 money available, but we're not adding that, as nearly as I can tell. We also received from the Department of Education in May an adjustment for the 2017-18 year, and that's almost $600,000, I believe, and then a high-cost disability grant of nearly $200,000. And then again, we've been talking about the Oregon School Capital Improvement Matching Program, and we're eligible for $7 million. And then just generally, the PERS bill, Senate Bill 20, or the Senate PERS Reform Bill, 1049, will reduce employer rates by 5.4 percentage points. It will change the cap on the number of hours that PERS retirees can work, and it might prompt Tier 1 employees. In my opinion, I think it's going to could prompt some Tier 1 employees to consider retirement. So I think that we could do an analysis on the potential impact of Senate Bill 1049. So there are just a number of things I think we could do to update the budget so we're not having to pass a cuts budget. So I know I'm in the minority. I will be in the minority, but I just think that there's additional revenue that's not accounted for in the proposal we have before us.
So I'd like to comment on a number of those observations. House Bill 3427, the $2 billion that you're mentioning, again, you saw the report on the Student Success Act and the timeline. We will not see any of that funding until the second year of the biennium. So waiting longer in June, we need this budget adopted by the end of this month. That would not factor in. In terms of the PERS bill that's being referenced, again, there is a lot in that needs to still be processed through the PERS board, as well as with PERS employees. And likely we will not see that relief until the following biennium. So again, waiting until the end of June, I don't think for this board is going to get you any different information about the PERS bill that was passed, where that's down the road in the future in terms of any relief from that. And again, House Bill 3427, we won't see any of that funding until the second year of the biennium. What we do know is that the state school fund did increase from 8.87 to $9 billion, and we did get an increase in that. That was shared with the Budget Committee at the time of the meeting that had just been passed. It was new information. It does provide an additional $1.2 million. You do have within the budget proposal a paragraph on page 5 about amendment budget plan, that if additional resources came in, that there would be a restoration, and it would be applied towards, in first order, classified and certified FTE and so on, and that is the plan. I do recall that the Budget Committee did approve the budget, even with the known entity of the $9 billion being now offered in the state school fund. So if you as a board are going to reopen a Budget Committee's approval, I think you would need to look at operating agreements and what it means to undo an approval by a Budget Committee to then change an approval of that, that we base the budget on 8.87. We can, because of the known fact of now getting $9 billion, we will reflect that in budget documents going forward. That happens all the time, every month, as the state presents us with new information about revenue or expenditures, and we keep truing up accounts every month when those financial statements are given to you. The budget rarely looks the same in May of the end of a year than it did the May before when it was adopted, because of adjustments in revenue and expenditures each month.
Dr. Reno makes a very good comment on the additional adjustment from Oregon Department of Education on 509,000. So as you recall, when we did the budget for this current year, 18-19, the estimate ending fund balance for this year is 4.8 million. So with this additional adjustment, that brings our ending fund balance from estimate of 4.8 into like 5.1, and then after the 2.9 per, then become 8 million. So we do recognize that in this ending fund balance.
Based on the motion and the approval that you made to the 18-19 budget with that PERS reserve of 1.1 million, that does impact our ending fund balance. So we have an additional 1.1 that we can spend to reduce, as Dr. Reynolds mentioned, going into a cuts budget. My message had talked about a $3.5 million reduction. So we now have that PERS amount that you've moved into our general fund that you just did for the 18-19 that's available to us now. We also have from the state with the $9 billion that gives us an additional 1.2 million. Of that, we do need to be mindful. A portion of that goes towards an adjustment to our now new contract with our classified staff. And I do want to go back. I had misspoken earlier. It is 350,000. So we have to think about that amount, but that leaves about 900,000. So the 1.1 and the 900,000 gives us about $2 million. Now, instead of a $3.5 million reduction, we only have a $1.5 million reduction potentially going into next year. Our commitment with our amended budget plan was if we had additional funds available to us, we would apply them towards the staffing plan that was made. We can, at this point with those funds, completely reduce the need to reduce the classified staffing and the reduction to certified staffing. I think I had about 18 FTE. We can reduce that by half. So that does significantly improve the outlook going into the 19-20 budget with those two increases now.
So we would, that's good news. I appreciate the idea of not budgeting for the monies that we anticipate coming. And of course, it would be really nice to budget according to monies that we anticipate coming. And I know that that probably isn't fiscally wise. My question is around, I mean, we know we have this additional funds and that is going to reduce the number of cuts that we're planning for. Can we edit this to reflect that so that we're approving a budget that reflects that, half the number of cuts?
Well, this document was approved by your by the budget committee.
Yes, based on the Oregon budget law, when the budget committee approves the budget, then the board has to adopt that approved budget.
But we can message that. I mean, if this is adopted tonight, and we know that there's an amended budget plan that does speak to that if more funds are made available, this would be the plan. So there is it does speak to that plan. Then after tonight, there could be a superintendent message that goes out that says the school board has adopted the 19-20 budget with in mind that the state did increase the state school fund to $9 billion, giving additional money to be applied towards the revenue, which reduces the need or mitigates the need for a $3.5 million reduction. So we can get a message out to the community that we've adopted this, but also that there's good news. Our reductions aren't as heavy as we thought they were going to be, and with an explanation of why that is.
And
then in July and August, you would see the updated financial statements.
so for clarity, I think I heard you say that we anticipate the cuts in licensed staff to be reduced by half. So that would change to a plan to reduce licensed staff by 9 FTE.
It would actually be 10 because there's 18 teachers, and then we had 2 non-classroom licensed staff, so it was a total of 20. So about 10.
And there would be 0 cuts in the classified positions?
Correct.
Okay. The only thing that's hanging me up, that sounds fine to me. It's a curious loophole because often in the budget committee meetings we're told, you know, the board still needs to approve this, and so now at the board level I'm being told, well, we can't change anything because the budget committee approved it, and so it's just an interesting thing for me to notice as part of the process.
Well, because there was an amendment plan in there, and there was a discussion about that amendment plan. If you recall, there was some discussion, should we make some bullet points? Should we add more specific language? And the discussion was, this does speak to the priorities, and if we do get more funds, we'd like it to happen this way, which is what is likely going to play out.
In the context of my question was, we were told on Friday that the budget committee would need to meet to approve the $4.5 million additional sale. And then we found out today, no, they don't need to meet after all. But that was the context of my questions. As long as the budget committee is meeting again, can't we also add back the known revenue increases? And at the least, we have Oregon Department of Education increases in May of I think 500, almost 600,000 for the 2018 year, that adjustment. We have a high-cost disability grant of nearly 200,000 and apparently about 1.2 million of additional funding from 3427 and potentially others. So I would just be more comfortable if we passed a budget that was accurate. I think that's consistent with what our responsibilities are. And we just amended it. I mean, I think we can do it outside of the budget committee process. I think consistent with GFO, with GASB and GFOA standards, you want an accurate budget so you don't have to go back and true it up all the time. If we can have something that's closer to what our known revenues are, that's what I'd be more comfortable with.
So just to clarify, we did not need the budget committee to meet to authorize the sale of the $4.5 million bonds. That had already been authorized. What came up when in discussion on Thursday in consultation with Piper Jaffray was a question by Carol Samuels asking us to look into, now that we were going to sell the $4.5 million and they told us this was the right timing, it would adjust the number that you just saw in the resolution. Her wonder was, does the budget committee need to reconvene for the whole committee to approve that new number? There was also a wonder, does the board have the authority to do that on a night like tonight and not need the full budget committee? She recommended to us that we seek out from financial consultants and experts beyond what she could advise to look into that. Because of the lateness of the hour, we took a conservative path that in case we did hear over the weekend that we needed to convene the budget committee, we wanted to prepare them to be ready to come tonight and prepare all of you for that possibility. We were still waiting for that determination. What we learned and sent to you from both Angie Peterman, the executive director of OASBO, and also from Danette Benjamin, a finance, taxation, and exemptions analyst with the Oregon Department of Revenue, is that we did not need to reconvene the whole budget committee to change that amount in the debt services, and that it was actually more appropriate for the board to do that tonight. To reconvene the budget committee would mean to repost and to notify, and that actually the budget had already been approved by the committee, and this was something that could be approved just by the board. So we took that advice, which is what Carol Samuels had asked us to do. She was unsure and said, seek out the advice and then follow what you hear, which is what we have done tonight. So I'm reticent to go against what's now being recommended by OASBO and Danette Benjamin and do something different in terms of adjusting any more than what they have suggested or recommended that we do.
Yeah, and since our total budget is 179 million, the additional 1.8 million is only 1%. So according to the Oregon Department of Revenue, their advices, board is allowed to make change to the budget prior to adoption, according to Oregon Status 294.456. And because changing to Fund 300 will be less than 10% of the total expenditure, the board is within the authority to ask this 1.8 million to the debt services prior to adopting it.
It's my opinion that the discussion of adjusting the budget to reflect the decisions already made by the legislature that we anticipated being made by the legislature was fully discussed at the budget committee, and that the majority voted to pass the budget as provided originally by the superintendent. And I'm prepared today with the change for the that's reflected in getting the additional bond monies that we would approve the budget tonight.
One more question. So the $7 million in awesome funding and the directive by Gill to include budget authority for the high school success grants, is that reflected in the budget?
So we have not applied for the Awesome Grant yet. As we heard from Mr. Woodley tonight, the application process begins July 1st. We'll get it submitted by July 15th. We won't know until the end of July whether we get the grant at all or how much the amount is. What we are eligible for is the approximately $7 million. So that's eligibility. Whether we are granted that amount, we don't know. So we won't know that information before the end of June, which is when you need to adopt this budget.
I'm comfortable voting to approve this budget. I do still have a question or two about the cuts. I mean, obviously my preference, like many people's preferences, to have, to not have a cuts, to not approve a cuts budget when we anticipate not actually making the cuts, hopefully. So I'm curious about this 2 non-classroom staff positions that was proposed as a cut. Is that, do we anticipate still needing to make cuts like that?
So I'm reticent to get to really speak about specific positions tonight, because what we've tried to do through this process is really wait and then see which are the least impactful positions in terms of priorities that we've established in our proposed budget, like class size, certain classroom ranges, and to see where we can make those reductions or not hiring back maybe some retirement or resignation in a way that has the least impact as possible. So making any kind of an indication tonight about which position here or there may tie us to a decision that we wouldn't want to be tied to come August. We will not, I can tell you this, we will not be restoring back the administrative position that is there, and we will not, what's still in those reductions is the professional development suspension. So we can now take a look at what's remaining in that 1.5, the administrative position, the professional development reductions, and if there are any other changes to our ending fund balance in 18-19 that put us in the positive, all of that works towards us having a better outlook into 2019, 2020. Mm-hmm. Our commitment has always been to keep staff intact. That's what's in the amended budget, and we will continue to work with that amended budget plan.
Yeah, I mean, I have confidence in this, and the paragraph around where the moves will be made, and that gives gives me assurance, and I trust that. And my concern is just like the email we got today about, this position is going to be cut, and please don't cut that position, and that type of concern coming up in the community as we approve a budget that is,
Sure, and that's understandable. I think that we still have a long time between now and August, so I would caution anyone saying that a position has been eliminated. I'm not sure which one you're referring to, but there's still a long time between now and school opening in August.
I also build a scenario with 6 scenarios, because when we build a budget, we cannot just look at 1 year, 1920, but we need to look at the biennium. So what happened in 1920 will affect 2021. So with that scenario, in July board meeting, I will present it to you, and I think that will help you make the decision easier based on what to save and what to cut, because what we do in 1920 will affect our 2021.
I will add to that. We also know that in 2021, we're getting some additional revenue. The House Bill 3427, that grant that we're applying, our allotment for that will be about $7 million will come to the district. That's $7 million per year. So we do know that's not helping in this first year, and this is when we need some revenue to get us through so we don't have such a deep cuts budget. The second year of the biennium, we will have that additional funding. Also, if the capital bond is put before voters in November and that gets approved, that does help us in terms of some support, just because of often there's staffing involved in the capital bond, and that can relieve the general budget in the areas that it's allowed to. So there are revenue sources coming for us specifically, as well as from the state to every district in the second year. And that's not unlike the landscape that's happening for every school district right now, is passing a very tight budget the first year of this biennium, and they're looking forward to more revenue coming the second year.
We are way over our time. I'd like to go ahead, Dr. Reynolds. I think we need to move forward.
So the position was a cutback in FTE at Westland High School. That's the email we received. And I know that it was focused on equity. I know you don't want to talk about specific positions. I also had asked about the phasing out of arts and technology by 1 full grade per year for the next 3 years. And I just want to make a statement that my hope is that with the restoration of House Bill 3427 and mental health services and other services, that we assure that that staff is kept intact, and that the students at arts and technology who need social services that would otherwise be attending arts and technology, that they have those services.
I didn't know if that was a question or a comment. I do believe I sent to the board several communications about our work with the Arts and Technology High School staff and that transition plan. Board members were invited to come to the meeting that we were having for parents, which was an open conversation about that transition plan. There were assurances to all of the staff prior to that meeting that their positions are intact. There are employees of the district. Where they serve their positions, we need to have some flexibility, and they know that, and they're agreeable and excited. They might teach a couple classes at Art Tech and maybe a class at Wilsonville High School or West Linn as we're in that transition, but their positions are intact. And I can make that assurance as far as I can make any assurance to any employee of the school district that their position is intact. So I think we have to be really careful when we make a promise to one group over a larger group of employees. I think we have to be cautious about that kind of a statement in public. But in terms of our transition plan, it does not show any reductions to the current staff. It may have some reassignments during those transition years, and the staff is excited about that. They also can become key members of the design team as we move into the reimagining of the new high school, and they're excited about that process as well. We had about 4 meetings with the staff, also the meeting before, the open meeting with the parents, and then a debrief afterwards. So and again, I'm always available to any board member who wishes to ask more questions about this at any time outside of a board meeting.
Let's vote.
Chelsea King Martin,
Aye.
Betty Reynolds,
No.
Ginger Fitch,
Aye.
Dylan Hides,
Abstain.
Reagan Molitor.
Yes.